Hey everyone, I'm Matt, and welcome to the Good Trouble Show. Today we have Washington, D.C. journalist Matt Laslo joining us with congressional reaction to the stripping of the UAP Disclosure Act, including his unreleased short interview with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. But first, do us a solid and hit that subscribe and thumbs up button on YouTube. You can also find us on Twitter at, at Good Trouble Show, and all other social media platforms at The Good Trouble Show. Our Twitter following is actually pretty small, so we would really certainly appreciate your follow there. And we also on our YouTube description, we have links to all of our social media accounts. Leave a comment, share, like, thumbs up, and subscribe. All those things encourage these platforms to spread the word about our show to the masses that do not track the UFO UAP topic. You can also find us on your favorite podcasting platforms. Just search for The Good Trouble Show. Finally, we need your financial support to keep the lights on. You can become a supporter of The Good Trouble Show by going to www.patreon.com/The Good Trouble Show. And for the price of a Starbucks coffee, you can support our work. Finally, on YouTube, super chats are open and are a great way to show your financial appreciation for our work, allowing us to bring you great guests. Actually, we're quite a bit of our equipment is on loan, so we are looking to finally upgrade and get our own stuff here. So we always appreciate your support. Okay, enough with the commercial. Today's guest has written stories for Vice, Rolling Stone, Wired, and the Daily Beast, covering the political beat in Washington since 2006. I don't know how he does that and stays sane. He's been on fire tracking down politicians and getting them on record about the recent news on UAPs, otherwise known as UFOs. Folks, please welcome our guest, Matt Laslo. Matt, how are you doing, man?
Thanks for having me, and no one's ever accused me of being sane.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of people have that opinion about me as well. So, how have you been? This is, I think, your third time to be on our show. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for putting up with our shenanigans.
How have I been? As I told Senator J.D. Vance yesterday, I'm miserable. I was like, I made terrible life decisions, I guess, back in 2006 when I started covering Congress. Yeah, I think yesterday alone I did 32 interviews because it was the last day the House was in session, and it was supposed to be the last day the Senate was in session until the new year. But I guess they're now in session through next week, it seems, trying to get a deal on a border package, Ukraine aid, and then that Israel aid. So that means I get to ask Mark Warner and Rubio, who I didn't get, about UAPs.
All right. Yeah, I was about to say they need. It's too bad they're not hanging out in D.C. to iron out the UAP Disclosure Act, and we're gonna get to that in a minute. So
they already successfully buried that one.
Yeah, well, big surprise there. So any big plans for the holidays? Doing any traveling or anything?
No, actually, I see my family at Thanksgiving because they're all saved by grace, is how some put it. Some say religious nut jobs. I don't know. I love them, but I love them at Thanksgiving. Christmas, I stay the fuck away.
Yeah, but I love my family, so I'm looking forward to seeing them. I've done a lot of traveling lately. I haven't been around a whole lot. I've been in Thailand recently, and have you ever been to Thailand? I freaking love the people there.
No.
They are so nice. Oh man, it's great.
I've heard
Anyway.
great things about it.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. But yeah, doing a little traveling. Losing focus here. Doing a little traveling for the holidays. But yeah, so we're glad you came on because we're gonna probably crank out maybe a couple more shows here for the before the end of the year, and then we'll be on a bit of a hiatus. Now,
when you did remind me what I'm doing for the holiday. Remember, I interviewed all 100 U.S. senators about David Grush?
Right.
Well, over the August recess, I was dropping those. And after we dropped probably 50 of them or whatever, everyone got so depressed and deflated that it was just like, oh, there's a new one. Like, oh, are they gonna rip on us too? Um, so then like traffic was bad because it was August, everyone's traveling then. So I need to compile all those, get all of those out, and yeah, so that's what I'm doing. Ho ho ho.
Ho ho ho! Yeah, Merry Christmas. So when I first had you on the first time, you described yourself as a gumshoe journalist. What exactly is a gumshoe journalist?
I bet you described me as that, but
Oh, was that me?
I'm just a leathery asshole. Actually, my first tat is tabula rasa, means blank slate. I don't really believe in objectivity, but it's more aspirational. A reminder for me to like, stay a couple steps back from, the material and the sources I cover. Then my second tat is my big First Amendment, my quill that wrote the First Amendment, which is why 80% of the time I walk around the Capitol with my sleeves rolled up so that lawmakers have to stare at my First Amendment every goddamn day.
Has Tim Burchett ever complimented you on your First Amendment tattoo there?
I don't think he knows what it is, but a Kentucky Congressman, Brett Guthrie, recently was like, "Hey, what's that feather?" I was like, "Oh, it's my First Amendment." He was like, "Oh, that's cool."
I
I
love
was like,
that.
"Thank you, old nerdy lawmaker, for calling me cool."
So I have to ask you, are you literally the only journalist that asks questions on the Hill about UAP? Has anyone else finally figured out that they need to cover this?
Who's my guy at News Nation? They've got
Ross Coulthart?
no. I'm gonna get it wrong. Cahill, right?
Well, you know what?
Anyway,
I'm
News
stumped.
Nation has been on it. It was interesting when the House UAP caucus, when they had their first meeting in the skiff. Uh, Outside of it was just one camera that was News Nation's, and they had one on-air reporter, one producer, and I believe one intern. So that was all News Nation, and then Matt Laslo and Ask a Poll. So it was just us. Well, then when the UAP caucus had their kind of end of year pre-NDAA presser, where they were going to rip on the intelligence community for gutting the UAP amendment and the NDAA, you probably had 25, 30 reporters in there, obviously cameras and stuff. I didn't see a ton of coverage come out of it, but you had more of the mainstream media in there, some asking questions. It was curious um, why there were so many reporters, and I didn't see a ton of stories. So I think it's on their radars a little bit, but nothing daily or weekly like we're doing at Ask a Poll or like News Nation's doing with really staying on it. Yeah, because especially like whether that Daily Mail piece, whenever a story comes out with unnamed sources, this is like what if the New York Times drops a big expose with unnamed sources. Well, then the Washington Post is going to be like, first off, damn, that was a good scoop. Wish we had that. Well, then they're going to start hitting up their sources, trying to confirm it and put their own stamp on that story while also moving it forward. That's journalism. We don't really have that in this UAP space. Sometimes we do. Me and the News Nation folks will piggyback off each other's works.
It's Joe Cahill, by the way. Darth
Okay,
Maul's better half just messaged that. So yeah, so Joe Cahill.
yeah,
I,
Joe
I kept
Cahill.
thinking Sean Cahill, different Cahill.
He's great on it. And so even like, yeah, with that Daily Mail piece coming out, that is such a bombshell piece. Even if it's misproven or whatever, it still is something that the CIA should be on the record about, Pentagon should be on the record about, etc. Um, and that's where this issue isn't on the radars of the mainstream media. They probably all like laugh that off. Where I'm like, that's some serious freaking allegations. either rip it apart, say, no, this is utter bullshit. How could they even blah, blah, blah. They're fabricating stuff. Or do what they did and kind of hid from it. So there's a lot of secrecy on this issue. Um, so we actually could use a whole fleet of reporters helping us out on this stuff.
You're actually talking to one of you're actually talking to one of the journalists that wrote that Daily Mail article. So that was myself, Chris Sharp, and Josh Boswell. And and our hope was that the other outlets
Oh,
would.
I didn't know that was yours.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, but our hope is that other journalists will pick up where we left off. We spent a considerable amount of time vetting this across a lot of sources, sources that didn't know each other, and wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I think there should be somebody on the Hill asking congressmen about the dirty tricks that the CIA Office of Global Access has been up to, and their little rogue element in the Joint Special Operations Command. You should also ask about Air Force Special Operations Command. You might find out a few things there.
Wait, I'm writing down my homework. Air
Force, my tip to you: Office of Global Access, and then may I suggest to these congressmen to bring in for testimony under oath the people that founded the Office of Global Access. One guy by the name of Douglas Wolfe, and there are others that set this thing up. Office of Global Access is very involved in the UAP thing. The whole UAP thing, that is under the CIA's portfolio. So tell you and your friends, man, just have at it. We left the breadcrumbs for you.
Well, and this is where it's intriguing. If you listen yesterday on Ask a Poll, our site, we dropped our exclusive with Senator Mike Rounds. He was the lead Republican co-sponsor with Schumer on the UAP Amendment and the NDAA. And
we're going to play that. We're going to play that in a bit.
Yeah, and so I asked Rounds, like, hey, do you know where the opposition came from? Thinking, well, the assumption has been House Intelligence Committee kind of trying to kill it. Oh, is it their chair, Mike Turner? Rounds said he was in some talks with them, even though House Intelligence wasn't really at the table, at least publicly, for the NDAA conference. You had the Armed Services Committee folks, their chairs from both sides of the Capitol, kind of took the lead. The Intelligence Committee folks weren't there, but they were, lurking in the shadows, so to speak.
Of course.
So Rounds confirmed that, all right, he did talk to Turner's office about the Schumer UAP amendment, but he says he didn't get a sense of a ton of pushback from them. So then that raises the question, all right, well, where was the pushback coming from? Especially because this is the Senate Majority Leader's bill. Not many bills that pass. Like, he's got a really tough election next year in 2024 for his Democratic troops. He does everything he can to give any of those lawmakers up next year their own wins. So, if they want to stamp their name on a bill, he gives it to him. There's not many bills stamped Chuck Schumer. And so the fact that his name is on this, that he was a part of the negotiations crafting it, and then it got gutted on his watch, that, we're still wondering who gutted it, because they did it behind closed doors. And that's where you do get the sense that it's external from the Capitol.
I would, so our sources have pretty solidly indicated that it was Turner, but we don't have anything that we can quote.
Well, and that's where Turner, I was kind of explaining this last night on one of these hits, you get these, so the Capitol, what do I say? When I'm giving tours of the Capitol to folks, I'm always like, hey, whatever Capitol Police officer tells us, we do. Even if what that Capitol Police officer is telling us is the complete opposite of what the last officer we saw told us. Because every officer has their little fiefdom, like that little plot of land that it's theirs to protect. That's their spot. Well, that's kind of the same for committee chairman, even low level bureaucrats. Like everyone gets their little slice of the pie. And so sometimes when you have within the executive branch these kind of powerful fiefdoms, um, their conduit, their seat at the table becomes one of those, especially if you have a chairman who doesn't really talk publicly about the issues, but will go to bat for you. And that's where I need uh, News Nation and Fox News, because those are the outlets that Turner goes on. He won't talk to me, even though I used to interview him all the time 2 decades ago. So he's afraid of me now. So I'm not going to get him. I'm going to keep being pain in his freaking ass. But
oh, he hates me. Trust me. I said he hates me. Trust me.
Why does he hate Matt?
Oh, you'd be surprised. I'm not high up on his list. That's for sure.
Well, congratulations.
Hey, I'll wear that as a badge of honor for sure. So how long have you been covering this UAP topic with these congressmen and senators?
Actually, this is my first year.
Wow. Okay.
Started basically in June. Because if everyone remembers, if we rewind the tape all the way back to the start of 2023 and the start of the year, it was the Chinese spy balloons. Remember January and then February. So like that sucked a ton of the oxygen out of Capitol Hill. And then you got the David Grush report. So the debrief, kind of like you guys, debrief, I don't really know if they have anyone here in Washington or their folks on Capitol Hill that I know of, but you're working the phones. So you guys are well sourced off the Hill. I'm the one with the sources on the Hill. And so y'all keep doing what you're doing with your sources. I keep doing what I'm doing with my sources, and beautiful symbiotic relationship.
It's a team effort. That is for sure. Yeah, I think that the CIA angle. I mean, we know that they have done some really criminal, corrupt stuff in the past. Of course, with what ended up sort of coming to a head with the church committee, and our hope in exposing what they had been doing with the whole crash retrieval program. And also what OGA, Office of Global Access, was doing was parsing this out to private aerospace companies. So sometimes these crashes would get sent off to JSOC for the recovery operation itself. But a lot of times, what we were told from multiple sources is that it would actually get sent to a private contractor where they would conduct the entirety of the recovery operation, secure the area, recover the material, and bring it back to their labs to tinker with. And it's as I think Christopher Mellon has rightfully pointed out, this is really a serious congressional issue when when basically illegal stuff is being hidden from Congress. Yeah, somebody told me a while back when we were talking about the Church Commission and the CIA. So CIA got their pee-pee slapped, and did they quit doing what they were doing? No, they just moved it around and just hid it. It's just crazy. It's like these folks at the CIA and some elements of JSOC. It's like they think we live under a military junta. So I digress. So getting back to David Grush. So after his testimony, there was some sort of obviously interest, but also what I sensed a lack of interest in his testimony. For instance, we know for fact that Congressman Mike Turner's staff was briefed on David Grush, and Turner went on and made some kind of snipe at Grush. But his people never came back to Grush and asked him to elaborate or, Hey, man! I'm head of this House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. This sounds like the CIA may be up to some shady stuff. Why don't you come into a skiff and tell us about that? They didn't do that with Grush whatsoever. Does that surprise you? And have you heard anything of late as far as, like, as Grush mentioned on the Hill? Do these politicians even ask you, hey, do you know what's going on with Grush?
The interesting thing about that is you kind of had, so in the lead up to his testimony, you saw Burchett getting antsy because you felt the outside pressure from the intelligence community, whatever that means or whoever that is. They were clamping down. He also, and it seemed like they were exerting pressure on oversight chair James Comer, on him and his staff. So you kind of saw this change in Comer closer to the date. And then coming out of it, like coming out of that hearing, don't forget this, anyone. We have all these exclusives up at askapol.com. Like, I just sat in the hallway listening to the hearing in one ear and then interviewing lawmakers as they exited. So I interviewed AOC as she exited. She was really intrigued and had more questions on the military industrial complex. And she comes at it from that angle. But then Jamie Raskin, the top Democrat on oversight, who like led the January 6th committee. Like, there's nothing Freedom Caucus about him. He came out of that with a ton of questions and said he'd
Wow.
been hearing about it from people he trusts. And then you have Nancy Mace, who's tends to be more moderate on some issues, et cetera. So there's a broad array of people coming out of that who were really intrigued and felt there was wind in their sails. And then they exited the committee room and something happened, as is wont to happen in the swamp that I call home. Um, I'm curious because I used to cover Jim Himes for his local NPR station, WSHU, in Fairfield, Connecticut. So I know him well. And so, oh, and I don't smoke, but where I smoke outside the Capitol, I constantly run into him on nice days because he just walks that way. And so I always like hide my smoke. I'll smoke in front of Republicans, but Democrats, I usually try to beat it
Okay.
when I talk to them.
Uh,
And so Himes, I just would keep pestering him on this because he was there at the first 2022 UAP hearing that Intel had, and now he's the ranking Democrat. He took over for Adam Schiff when he was ousted from the committee, and so Himes, he's very intriguing, and he kind of tells me he's not one to watch on this issue, which makes me keep my eyes on him because he's so dismissive of it. Um, and there's actually an interesting interview he did. Someone sent it to me last night that people should check out. We'll post it at askapol.com. But Himes, when he was coming out of the 2022 UAP hearing, like, he just mocks like any notion of aliens or something extraterrestrial. He just goes, oh, little green man, dot dot dot. He seems to really come at it from the foreign governments have. So what he would say, probably based on your reporting, the Daily Mail, he would say, oh yeah, there's retrieval programs, but that's for an experimental Chinese craft goes down, then they would go and get it. I presume, but again, classified, so he can't really
right.
divulge fully. But he makes it seem like he's so dismissive of it. But I think he's dismissive on one level, but then when it comes to potential technology, and especially technology in the hands of U.S. adversaries, he seems very keenly aware. And remember, Connecticut is contracting country, military industrial complex, has its stamp all over that state.
Oh yeah.
So he's got a few masters to serve. yeah, I'm curious, especially because he was so dismissive, and he had told me a month or so ago that UAPs never came up, never even talked about it with the chair.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
and
odd.
so and we have that at Ask a Poll. So I need to circle back with him because I'm like, wait, do you see when you and your folks were gutting Majority Leader Schumer's amendment? Do you see that, like, hey, some of your Senate colleagues who aren't these Freedom Caucus folks, who are some of the louder ones in the House on the UAP caucus, like, I want to see you and Senate Majority Leader Schumer have a conversation, because, yeah, he's so dismissive that it's just odd.
It
It's
is
odd.
odd, and what's kind of odd about it too, I've been watching it on Twitter, is it's almost like he's sort of
Yeah.
performative about it, like putting little alien emojis and stuff, and yeah,
Yeah, this week he got into it, stepped into a Twitter spat that he didn't have to, but someone accused
right.
him or said, like, oh, his staff runs this. And then he hopped down and was like, no, I run it. And then I'm like, you're a moron. You just stepped in a bunch of shit. But yeah, he was like trying to dunk in like the cool father sort of way. And like, don't ever try to do that.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
no,
you're
anyone
not
that
going
has
to
a
look
dad, like,
cool.
you're not cool.
Yeah, you're definitely not cool. And one of the things that we've had multiple sources tell us, especially in regards to the UAP Act and testimony from David Grush and other whistleblowers, intimidation from, we'll just say, the intelligence community or other elements has not necessarily, that pressure has not necessarily been put on the lawmakers, but on the staffers. And that's something I would suggest maybe do a little digging on as well. I think that there's a there.
Well, and you find this with a lot of issues. And I just met Gillibrand's aide because as the NDAA, it was actually the day the 3,000-page conference report was coming out that night. And she was with two aides, her press guy, who I know, and then her intel staffer on this, it turns out. And she had him answer some of the questions. And he was like, actually, ma'am, kind of corrected her, gently in a ways to not step on the toes of these
Right.
senators, but he really wanted to say, no, ma'am, what you're saying is bullshit.
Yeah.
She was
Don't
like, oh,
don't make
no, I
the
think the UAP amendment's good. And he was like,
yeah, don't
the
make the
records
boss.
preach.
Yeah, rule number one of the staffer: don't make your boss look bad. Yeah, and the thing I think a lot of people don't understand is that these staffers, particularly the ones that deal with DOD or IC, they all have the same level of security clearance as the senators. They have to be able to view the intelligence product in a classified setting, of course, in order to recommend to their senator or their congressman, hey, I really think you should do this. I sat in on 10 hours of testimony from David Grush, where he spoke about firsthand things and things like that. So
Well, real
prior,
quick on that. So
yeah,
during that hearing in the oversight committee, even though, I'm in the hall interviewing all those lawmakers as they're leaving, they're each leaving at least one aide behind, watching it, taking notes. So
interesting,
every lawmaker, especially in the Senate, most are on 3 committees ish. Some are on 4, House 2 or 3. Um, those committees, each one, like, that lawmaker will have what's called an LA, or a legislative assistant. Well, that they basically become their brain trust on those issues. And so, yeah, staffers do play a key role in this, and some of them are easier to intimidate than actual lawmakers. So I could see that as, you know, a good technique from, a good in the bad sense, but a good
right?
technique for exerting pressure, doing it at the staff level. Because again, these lawmakers, they have a million things to do. And as both Senators Chris Dodd, former senator from Connecticut, and former Republican Senator Lamar Alexander. Each one of them told New Yorker writer Packer in like 2010 for his piece, The Broken Chamber. Both of them said on the record that 75% of your time as a U.S. Senator is spent fundraising.
Yeah.
75% of your time as a U.S. Senator is spent fundraising. For one, fuck that.
Yeah, that's
Like,
crazy.
we should all, right, left, and center, we should all blow up that system because, I don't know, we want them working maybe 50% harder. Maybe not 75% harder. Maybe they fuck shit up.
Yeah.
So we don't have serious lawmakers. Like,
Yeah.
they are focused on reelection. No, there are a handful of workhorses. But on this issue, I haven't seen a ton of, well, Rounds. Senator Rounds is proving to be a workhorse, and Gillibrand was, but she didn't insert herself. She didn't get a seat at the table in these talks. When again,
Not at
Majority
all.
Leader Schumer is a New York Democrat, so he's the senior senator there, so she doesn't want to step on his toes, and he's the party leader, so she doesn't want to step on his toes. So I see that she was thrust into a very awkward situation there. But if that's your baby, you don't let someone change your baby's diaper, and just leave them to do it.
Right. I never had kids, so I can't relate to any sort of diaper changing. But
No.
So yeah. So what were there any, when I went to the Seoul conference and I heard Carl Nell spoke, that was the first kind of inkling that I got that this thing may not go through as written. Were you hearing any rumblings before it went to conference that this whole thing may end up getting gutted by Turner and fans?
So this Congress, I need to look up the newest numbers, but it was, last I checked, it was under 20 bills. So this is just an unproductive, worthless Congress. I mean, what did they do? They didn't default on the national debt. Like, honestly, thanks, guys. Like, they didn't shut down the government. So, like, that's the list of things they didn't do. What did they do? They surprised everyone, including Professor Laslo here. They shut down Congress for 3 weeks. Like, wow, I didn't even know that was possible. But they did it in the House. And they ousted Speaker McCarthy. And so the NDAA, that key period, because Congress is gone for August, then they're back, and it becomes, crunch time for the fall to get them out of DC by Christmas. Well, 3 weeks of that, 3 key weeks of that time, there was no speaker. And so the House was in disarray. Well, the conference, like, hearings weren't taking place. Intelligence Committee met a couple times on Israel because they were attacked during that. And so it became this strange thing. I would go and ask these lawmakers about policy, about this policy in particular, and they had no idea. They get a mini pass on that because the House was shut down for 3 weeks. And what ended up happening, we now see, and we're going to see it in the coming months on every freaking key issue that they're jamming through right now, is that when the rank and file aren't allowed to be there, party leaders are just like, good. So they were still working on it at their level and crafting it. They just totally cut out the rank and file. And so that's where now I get, well, like, talking to all these senators who were a part of it, they were basically clueless, because even after the deal was hashed out and their UAP amendment was gutted, they still remain clueless. And that's where I'm intrigued why they didn't insert themselves further into it. Because especially with Gillibrand and Rounds, the two of them, Senate's a body of 100 people. There's only 6 of those 100 senators who sit on both the Intelligence Committee and the Armed Services Committee. So that gives them this special status. Because we're a militaristic nation, and ... And we're nanny state for the globe. So our intel and our armed services committees are like sacred, like some of the top spots to be on if you're in Congress. And so the fact that the two of them were cut out of negotiations, like go to Askapol and listen to the rounds thing with that, our rounds exclusive, what I posted last night with that in mind. Like he does not know how his own amendment was gutted, even though he's a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Isn't
Like
that crazy?
that,
It's,
it's
I mean,
insane.
come on, you know?
It's insane. He should at least be able to say, "Hey, I can't tell you who that is because I need a good relationship with this certain House member or whatever." But no, it wasn't that. He asked, and he has no idea who was pulling the strings and gutting his work and Senate Majority Leader Schumer's work at the same time, and Gillibrand's work. It's just wild.
I wonder, backing up a bit, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is as batshit crazy as they come. I know, and
We talked about. I told
I
her
have
Merry
nothing.
Christmas yesterday.
What's that?
I told her Merry Christmas yesterday.
What'd she say to you?
I I studied to be a pastor in her district. So if this was 20 years ago, the first time I met her, I was like, "Hey, ma'am, this is 20 years ago. I'd be your constituent, and I'd be giving sermons in your district."
Wow, that's yeah.
Her head about twisted off.
Yeah, I'll bet. Anyway, I don't agree with her on anything, but she was complaining that all of this was done without any of their involvement or input, and so I would agree with MTG that that's just crazy. How much of this do you think is indeed contractor dollars being held, donations or whatever, held above the heads of these congressmen? So for instance, I mean, I've railed on Mike Turner, but if indeed Democrat Jim Hines, if it's the same thing, how much of that do you think could play into this?
That's where I can't even answer that because my sources, the senators, can't even point me in the direction of where the flow of the water stopped. And so that's where we don't know if it was the CIA or if it was contractors or if it was the Pentagon or hell, it could even be NASA or it could be the Department of Energy. And so I still have more questions I need answered before I can um, safely answer that. What I will say is watch out for the revolving door because I don't know if you can fully separate America's contracting um, apparatus from the Pentagon. Like at a certain point, they've kind of woven themselves together in a really sick and dangerous way. If you ask President Eisenhower, who warned
I
of this decades ago.
Yes, sick and dangerous and perverted. It's very perverse in my view. I mean, like you
Well,
look at the
take a step back. Perverse Congress with just days, clock running out, them wanting to rush home and spend time with the family for the holidays. They just passed a 3,000 and some like 100-page National Defense Authorization Act. That bill is a whale and it's so all encompassing. Like in a perfect world, it should be illegal for Congress to pass something that big because anyone who voted for that voted for a lot of shit that they oppose. Like, but that's why it's so big, and that's why it's kept that way on purpose. Because like that's the contemporary horse trading. You get a few of these provisions that you care about, but then you're going to have to swallow warrantless fucking wiretapping. Right? The
right.
post 9/11 warrantless wiretapping program is inside that 3,000-page bill in one of
Wow.
those secret CIA annexes. Yeah. And so that was also part of the complaints, especially from the right this time, Republicans in the House. They're like, no, 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 we want to debate that. And we do not want to reauthorize it. I think they ended up passing a temporary extension of that FISA or 702, the warrantless wiretapping. They kicked it until the spring. But like, yeah, that's an issue that I think deserves its own fucking floor time.
It totally does, and especially if you think about it at the Department of Defense level. So, for instance, the head of the Office of Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, Ronald Moultrie, he worked at Battelle. He was on the advisory board of Battelle. This watchdog found it a while back and posted it. He actually had it on his LinkedIn page, and I think, as everyone knows, Battelle has been very involved in reverse engineering of metamaterials. We'll say from things not made by human hands. So he goes from being on the advisory board of Battelle. He was also in the CIA Directorate of Science and Technology. Again, that is the directorate that owns the UAP UFO portfolio. So then when we start talking about Moultrie, I guess he calls up his friends at the NSA, because all of that stuff got scrubbed off of the internet. The stuff on the oversight, this oversight outfit that listed all of the kind of I just say shady dealings that he had, and the LinkedIn stuff, all of that got wiped out. And what was interesting too, so Chris Sharp Chris Sharp started the Daily Mail story, and then he brought me on board, and I was on board for a while. And then once we realized
earlier.
Yeah, once we had something really big, that's when we brought on Josh Boswell. But when we first were hearing about this Office of Global Access, when we really started trying to research it and trying to find it, it was on this. It was buried, but it was on the CIA website. So guess what? Around October 30th. CIA managed to magically pull that up, remove references to it off of their site. Now you can go back to the Wayback Machine, www.waybackmachine.com, and you can find it. But these folks are so freaking dirty and corrupt. It just blows my mind. Now,
so funny. Like the secretive group, the CIA, which is like world renowned. They didn't even think, like, remember, like, that's reminiscent of when NASA was like, all right, we're gonna have a UAP office, but we're not gonna disclose the head of it. What the fuck? Like, are
that's
you
crazy.
kidding? And so we had in the CIA like, oh, scrub this office that you all just reported on, and knowing that there is a Wayback Machine, like, are they like, oh shit, we didn't know about that? Like, that's where, as much as I'm like, yeah, there's people in the government that are very secretive, I'm also like, there's motherfuckers in there who are really fucking stupid. Which,
Yeah, it's like Ronald Moultrie doesn't think that we're going to not find his past board meetings, and just by magically getting his NSA buddies to delete it off the internet, there's that Wayback Machine. It'll bite you in the ass every time. Now,
the screen grab.
Oh yeah, trust me, we keep receipts on people, especially the debunkers.
Yep.
Anyway, now we've talked about the swamp and particularly Mike Turner, and now I take it no one was allowed in on the closed door meeting of the House negotiation on the NDAA, correct?
Well, so NDAA, it was performative art at its worst. They had a one public conference meeting, but only like the first 20, 25 minutes of it were open to the public and the press through us. The heads of the House Armed Services Committee and then the Senate Armed Services Committees, they all, the four Republicans and Dems, they all made their little opening statements. Then they kicked all of us reporters out. Not less than 2 hours later, it was done. All the rank and file members coming out, and Matt Gaetz and others pushed the UAP issue in there because that was the only time they had all 60 or 70. There's a lot of people on that conference. All those folks. So he was able to air it publicly. Well, pardon me. He was able to air it privately, but to his colleagues in that session. Well, everyone leaves that, and because there was talk like, oh, this closed door session, this might, go 12 hours. This might go all the way into the evening. No, once they got in there, they were like, oh, this is a sham. They're like, nothing we actually do matters. This is all being negotiated above us. And so members were done after less than 2 hours, and everyone came out kind of pissed, being like, so we're not really on the conference committee. Like, we are in name. And like, so yeah, even
Well,
even senators like Gillibrand and Rounds, they weren't at the negotiating table at all on the conference report, it seems.
that's just crazy. And we're gonna play. Go ahead,
Rounds
sorry.
was a little. Oh, I was correcting myself. Rounds, he was a part of those negotiations with Schumer, and those nebulous forces. But Gillibrand, Rubio, the others, because remember, Todd Young's on that bill, so is Heinrich. There's 6. None of them, they were all clueless. We talked to all 5 of them last week. I had the NDAA passing. All 5 of Schumer's co-sponsors, none of them knew a fucking thing. And like,
Wow.
that's terrifying.
So somebody squirreled out a photo. Somebody had, I guess, their phone, and they took a photo of Turner basically presenting paperwork on why the UAP thing needed to get shot down. We're showing this for the first time. We're about to air some of your clips. But anyway, so here's Turner. You probably have not seen this, but here's no, not that. Hold on 1 second.
And
Yeah.
if we
I'm
can
gonna
negotiate
stop
on the
that.
commission, that's fine. In terms
Oh, wrong thing there. Anyway, sorry, hit the wrong button. But where is it? Oh, I can't find it. Anyway, we're gonna make a little joke there, a little technical issue. But let's get to your clips and yeah, because this is where the real gold is, I think, with what you do, is getting these folks on the air. So this first one, this is from Tim Burchett. By the way, you got to tell Tim to come on my show. His staff continually gives me the runaround. He's welcome here anytime. I may be a Democrat, but I love that guy and I love the work he's doing.
Well, even next time we do it, maybe just have me and him on it, and then
I love that. I love
makes
that.
it
Okay.
easier.
Okay. So here's
like to ask more extended questions.
Here's Burchett.
I did, and I need more
Oh,
information
sorry.
about that.
Gillibrand.
Patrick's new.
Yeah,
Phrasing.
I had a long debrief with Kirkpatrick, which went very well. So
Yeah.
I needed the new guy. I was over to assess what this status is, because I wasn't sure about it. I didn't know about Trump's speech, but I happened to be there, so I'm going to assess it.
Feels like mood's changed on the issue. Worry might know. I said growth, the live stuff. This first pro.
How do you see it changed?
He just saw. So it's really not sure.
See,
Less interest, less. There's not much of an investigation going on for here. It doesn't seem.
no, I need to look into it. I need to figure out what's going on, and I don't know yet. So I'll give you more later, as soon as I figure more things out.
Crypto.
We're doing a new amendment.
So clearly that wasn't Tim Burchett. I literally landed about like 2 hours from being out of town for 3 weeks. So technically things are a mess here. So apologize. One-man operation.
So with that Gillibrand, I think everyone just heard it. Like, she knows nothing. And like in June and July, she was the one who was saying, "Hey, I want to meet with David Grush privately." Then she said, "I also want to meet with him publicly," which means a hearing. So then something changed, and that's where it was curious. She kind of pushed back on me, like, "What do you mean the mood in the Senate's changed?" I'm like, you and Senator Rubio were gung ho, wanted this investigated because of the severity of Grush's claims. Like, Grush put on Congress's lap, "Hey, the executive branch is lying to you and hiding special access programs, or SAPs, from you." And so they have not batted away Grush's claim. They've just like stopped caring about it, moved on to other stuff, it seems. But that's why we're not going to let him off. And
I
then,
love.
like, at the end, I asked her about crypto. Then she had more time, and her mood changes. She's like, oh, and she knew about that bill. Because remember, I'm also a Wired magazine contributor, so I'm always working on 10 different stories. But you could
Right.
just tell that she went from night and day. Like UAPs, that's way on her back burner right now. But crypto,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
Gillibrand's thing.
Well, and speaking of cold hard cash, so here we finally found the photo of Congressman Turner negotiating, or basically making the case that the UAP thing needed to be cut. There he is. There, he just walked back in from a Lockheed Martin meeting, and he's clearly. Yeah, he clearly knows who butters his bread. We'll just say that, and then let's see.
A lot nicer over the years.
Now you say you work in the swamp, and it turns out that Turner is actually a swamp creature. Yeah, he's probably the king swamp creature, and then he really kind of operated in a gangster-like fashion with trying to derail this thing. So he got a really nice. Yeah, you like the F-22s and the Lockheed Martin grill that Lockheed
he
paid.
wants us to be two of those teardrops because, man, he would love to kill me.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's actually from our friend Uplifting Tweets on Twitter. He does a bunch of these amazing, very funny graphics. He does it all on his account, of course. You can follow him at Uplifting Tweets, and he's been very generous in doing some stuff for us. Anyway, I digress here as I try not to crater the show technically. Okay, so we heard from Gillibrand, and. Now let's listen to Congressman Tim Burchett. Tim, tell your staff to let you come on my show. I promise you'll be in friendly territory. I won't give you a hard time about being a Republican. Anyway, okay, here we go. Here's the great Tim Burchett. Freaking love this guy.
Does that kind of show the power of intel community?
Yeah. I mean, they always so let's be honest. We put anything we want in there, and they're still not going to tell us the truth.
So now, what do you think of what made it in there?
Okay. I don't know. I'm not going to get too upset either way because I just don't trust them to do the right thing.
Yeah. So what does that mean for you and the UAP caucus?
Got a lot of work to do. It gives us something to do too. It feeds the fire of distrust, I feel like. Other than total disclosure.
So this adds wind to your sails.
Yeah, I think so. It's like Rare Rabbit. Oh, they told me in that for right. I just want total disclosure.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I'm not there's no compromise on that.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll be watching. Appreciate you, boss.
You got it. Thank you, Brad. Thanks.
Total disclosure, brother. That's right. I accidentally cut out the front end of that interview where you say, "Hey man, nice." You said like "nice coat" or something like that, and he said, "Yeah, I'm trying to find one that's made in America, not China," or something like that. But I'm like, "Wow, that's a really great in. Compliment him on a really nice looking coat, and you'll get his attention."
Oh no! I was complimenting the huge hole in his tattered Carhartt jacket.
Oh, really?
I come from 4 generations of landscapers. I was like, mad props on that coat, especially rocking it with your suit. Classy.
I love Tim Burchett. Again, we may not agree on much politically, but we do on the UAP issue. And this guy, Tim Burchett, he has absolutely no fear and is not afraid to stand up to the deep state or whatever you want to call it on this. So, man, I have such respect for him.
Well, that's the thing about Burchett and the Congressional UAP caucus. But they're still trying to figure out what questions to ask and who to ask them to. And so it seems like they're very much getting blocked by their colleagues on the Intelligence Committee, on behalf of the intelligence community. It'll be interesting when Congress gets back in January. Burchett told me, we broke the news, that they were going to get to read Grush's initial classified IG report. He quoted us January 12th. Initially, when I talked to him yesterday, he told me the week earlier. So I still have to get that confirmed. But when Congress comes back from their holiday, they get to actually read David Grush's Inspector General report in a classified setting. So in a SCIF, they're not going to be able to come out and tell us all the stuff in there. But why they say that's so key is because then the next time they're in a SCIF with the IG and other folks, they know the questions to ask. Because when they had, I think it was October maybe, when they had that first meeting in the SCIF, everyone came out saying this is totally useless, in part because where the bodies are buried are hidden from most of these folks who are on the oversight committee, so they don't have classified or they don't have security clearances per se. So we'll see. It seems like lawmakers are definitely heading out of Washington this week deflated, a little depressed. They care about the UAP issue and they just got their heads handed to them. And maybe that's what it is with Gillibrand. Maybe it's just shame. She cares about this issue. She got out in front of it or tried to. And then they got steamrolled. So even though they're leaving a little bit deflated and, racked up another defeat, they, right when they come back in January, boom, they're going to get a lot of new ammo. And so then we'll see where it goes from there. And with the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, that's an annual bill. So even though that 3,000 pages just passed, lawmakers are already working on amendments for next year's. And so I'll see you around this time next year, brother.
That's right, brother. Do you think that possibly, I had this thought when I was flying back to LA a couple hours ago, that maybe the lack of fight, and we're going to play Senator Rounds' comments, which I thought were really, really good. Do you think that the lack of fight was that possibly this whole thing was kind of a test balloon to sort of see what the left and right limits are, and then they're like, okay, now we know what the limits are, and then we're going to readjust for round two? Or am I just crazy?
I'm still curious. Well, so a lot of these members, especially in the UAP caucus, they're newer members. They don't, they're part of a Congress that itself is rewriting the rules. So they're not playing by the rules of the past. I don't know if they know all the levers of power that are at their disposal. They're younger members. They learn as they go. And so we'll see. There's been some hiccups, strategic ones on their part. So they're learning as they go. It'll be intriguing to see going forward if they can unify. And like right now, like Burchett a week or so ago said that, he brought up UAPs to Speaker Johnson, and that Speaker Johnson was very open to it. I just talked to former Speaker Emerita or whatever, Patrick McHenry, who filled in for McCarthy in the interim before we got Speaker Johnson. And I asked him on a crypto story I'm working on. I'm like, hey, have you brought it up to Johnson? He goes, he's super busy right now. But he said he's trying to, because Johnson's so green, doesn't know about shit, that anyone who gets his ear on these issues and says, hey, I care about this, well, then Johnson thinks, oh, I know an issue close to their heart. So I know how to get their vote when I need it if I placate them on this stuff. So we'll see. I haven't heard members of the UAP caucus really formally requesting of Johnson a select UAP committee, as they did of McCarthy. And I think if they did, he might say yes. Especially if they do it not around the other Republican leaders and not around his staff, and
Yeah.
especially not around Turner's staff.
Yeah. One of the bits of info that we were given by one of our sources on the Hill was that because Johnson is so green, especially on this topic, and a lot of Republicans think he's just not going to be there very long, he was very reliant upon what Turner and Rogers told him that he should do. Did you hear? Have you heard similar things?
Literally anyone who gets to him first on any issue. It's literally when we're kids and like, ooh, you gotta get to mom for tell dad about that shitty report card.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
Washington is such a shit show. It truly is. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It's just a shit show any way you look at it.
sorry, Saru.
Okay, so let's.
You hurt my pup's feeling.
So I know we were going to try and keep you to an hour as my camera loses focus. So let's play. Let's play Senator Rounds here, because I thought this was a really great interview that you had with him. Let's watch this.
Who is on it? But I think an independent.
Oops, sorry, going to back it up. Here we go.
How you doing, sir?
Hey, good. How you doing? I don't know.
So-
Out of curiosity.
Still standing. What do you make of the changes to your UAP amendment?
It's not what we wanted, but it's a step in the right direction, and it brings attention to the need for additional transparency. I would really like to have the commission, and if we can negotiate on the commission, that's fine in terms of who is on it. But I think an independent commission is still the best way to go.
Do you know who pulled the levers? Was it Chair Turner?
I don't. I had talked to them, and I know that there's some concerns, but I don't know if the concerns were such that it would stop. So I honestly don't know where the actual stop was at within the process.
Going forward, how do you plan? Are you going to watch implementation, keep your eyes on Arrow, and then potentially tweak it in next year's NDA?
Here's the deal. And Arrow is a part of DOD. Well, this goes beyond DOD. This requires attention or cooperation by other agencies as well. And that's the reason why we want it separated out. We want it to be all-encompassing. Do you guys mind if I... No, come on in.
Not at all.
But that's the reason why we want it to be all-encompassing. And Arrow is working, but Arrow is just for DOD. And and while they're collecting items, they're not really disseminating items. And so we would like to have some transparency, but we also want to make darn sure that we protect our national security interests as well.
Wow, Sean Kirkpatrick wasn't sharing data with Congress. I'm floored by that. Why would he not share what he found with Congress? That's just crazy talk.
And this has been the other thing that's been a little bit annoying, but with Congress, you got to take the long view. What Democrats really, really cared about universal health care, and it took them about 100 years ago to fall a little short of universal health care. Like shit takes a long time when it's policy. And so UAPs are now on the map. They're on the radar of lawmakers and party leaders. With Arrow, the changing of the guard there seems interesting. And I haven't met a lawmaker yet who's met with the interim, like the replacement of Kirkpatrick.
Right.
So that's one that's on my radar. I'm intrigued on who that guy is because he's got a background in the intelligence community. I think he's actually still intelligence community. He's just going to be the head of Arrow. Correct me if I'm wrong, but look at his resume when they put it out in the release. Like they moved him to that position. They moved him to Arrow to be the deputy like a week or two before Kirkpatrick, or just days before Kirkpatrick announced he was gone. So I don't know. That deck already seems stacked.
Yeah, that's
That's
yeah. I mean, especially considering it's the CIA that's done most of the dirty work managing this whole thing, and the what I would say would be a criminality. So here you're putting somebody from the intelligence agency, and I'm by no means saying it's the entire intelligence agency or CIA is corrupt, but you have something that going on there that is not American. But I think one of his main points was that Aero is is run under DOD. You can't trust the Pentagon to tell you the truth. They are going to lie to you. They have been doing this for 100 years. They consider people in the Pentagon, the CIA, OUSDI, all of these deputy level bureaucrats, these SES employees, in a perverse way, look at our elected officials as temporary employees, all the way from Secretary of Defense, Director of the CIA, Presidents, Congress. They all think that these folks don't need to be read into this whole thing, and some that are, they're not even told the whole thing. And yeah, so you've that's why I'm saying there's got to be some kind of hearing that needs to happen with subpoena powers, so you can get people from the Office of Global Access in there to ask these folks under oath, hey, what were some of the dirty operations you did when this was formed? Tell us about what works operations that you did. Tell us what other government nodes this is spread in, DOE, other areas. And kind of touching on what you were talking about earlier, part of how this whole thing got hidden was they spread it across different nodes. So you don't get the entire site picture of how this whole illegal thing has been run unless you are a senator or congressman that is on, we'll just say Senate Armed Services and Senate Intel, like Gillibrand. You need to see the DOD component, and you need to see the IC component to understand how this thing has been legally hidden from these congressmen. So anyway, I'm on a rant. Apologies.
You just reminded me. So I'm a feature writer, write magazines, contributor, was it Playboy, Wired Magazine, Rolling Stone, etc. So I'm always thinking ahead. The best question in journalism is usually what's next. Move the story forward. And so what? Part of the reason I did 32 interviews yesterday is because I have a bunch of kind of forward-looking content and content to get me through these next 3 weeks of Congress being gone, because I still got to work, even though they don't gotta. And so I have a bunch of exclusives with a bunch of the UAP caucus members, some senators that I'll be dropping here over the next 3 weeks. One of them is with Congressman Carson. Remember, he chaired the 2022 UAP hearing. What he told me is he was like, hey, and so yeah, with lawmakers, they're constantly now asking me for intelligence, and I'm like, I'm
I love that.
that same question. Like, damn, like I don't know about this more than you, except sadly, many times I do. Well, Carson was like, hey, have you heard anything about that UAP Select Committee? He goes, because like they might need a ranking member, kind of like hinting and joking a little bit, but very serious, that he would like to be ranking member of it. So that's intriguing. We'll see if he pushes that at all, because even though the House Intelligence Committee seems to be at once the biggest opposition to UAPs on Capitol Hill, it also seems to be the most dismissive of UAPs on Capitol Hill, which is why it's fascinating that the first UAP UFO hearing in some half century, 50 years, was conducted by the Intelligence Committee in the House, and it was Carson who led that through his subcommittee. So it seems like there are competing forces within that committee. if Carson ever did get empowered on this topic, that would be really intriguing because he definitely comes at it from the foreign adversaries angle. Doesn't want them to have the technology or use it. But he listens, like he's not dismissive of David Grush. Like he takes him very seriously, and so he's not a blank slate, but he's always learning. And the issue's definitely on his radar. And like you'll hear in the interview, he's always asking questions and he's
Carson.
And he's always keeping his cards close to his chest. Like he's a talented member of the intelligence community because he used to run Indiana's DHS, or he was a part of their like Homeland Security thing. So he's been an agent in the field, which you can tell. I wouldn't mess with that cat.
That's for sure. Well, and I think a lot of it too. I mean, these people are not dumb, and I think
some of them.
Well, okay, maybe
them.
some of them. Yeah, I mentioned one three-letter person earlier, but you listen to Rounds and you listen to Carson, and they know what's going on, and they know that the Pentagon and the CIA just flat out lies to their face, and I'm sure Moultrie does it with a smile. And by the way, let's just say you're going to show up to a UAP hearing and you're a witness. You're probably going to want to make sure you're not briefed on certain things so you don't perjure yourself. So if CIA or Pentagon wants to throw you in there, you're probably going to get briefed on stuff after the fact, so you don't perjure yourself in front of Congress, which again just goes to this how dirty this whole freaking thing is. And as I've ranted before, you can't have a democracy when you've got a major element of the CIA Office of Global Access, which does do other recovery operations not related to UAP. For instance, say they were the ones that the Osama bin Laden raid happened. Part of OGA's thing is that they can go into friendly countries without having to go through State Department. Conduct an operation. They can also go into denied areas too and conduct these operations, and that's part of why the UAP recovery operation is run out of them, because what we found out is there is a system that tracks these things all the time, and they know when one goes down, and the last thing they want to have happen is for Russia or China to go in and pull out one of these craft and take it back to their place. So that's why the OGA, who has the capability and the people on standby, can go and fly these teams in, recover this stuff, and take it back. But when you're not telling Congress about it, when you're lying to them, and you are looking at our democracy in this perverted fashion, it's I never had kids, and some days I'm glad I didn't, because what I sometimes see that really goes on in this country is maddening.
Well, and you just kind of reminded me. I brought it up earlier and we talked about it, but how this year started was with American airspace being invaded by a fucking balloon.
Right.
Granted, it was this huge Chinese spy balloon or whatever, but so the year started with massive intelligence failure, massive Pentagon failure. Whatever that object was, it hovered over intense or secretive nuclear sites, or was it armed military bases with nuclear capabilities? And so and that's where it's fascinating, because you had classified briefings. The entire U.S. Senate would go into the SCIF to be briefed on those invasions. And like what you just said was so intriguing, because if we have these capabilities to send in our soldiers or whatever, these elite units to go and retrieve whatever falling in other nations, I'm curious if they've now turned some of that technology on us, speaking of warrantless wiretapping. So I'm wondering if some of that surveillance, because that's still my big question. Like, um, is America vulnerable to Chinese spy balloons? Like, I don't think lawmakers have even gotten an answer to that because lawmakers stop asking the fucking questions. Like, lawmakers work with this shitty cable news cycle, which is, oh, intense. The world is falling. Everything is horrible. And then they fucking forget about it for the rest of the year. Part of my job at askapol.com is I don't let them forget.
I love that. I love that about you. You know, one thing that I kind of wondered too is if this was because and do you have a few more minutes and I'm keeping you a little bit longer?
Yep. Well, actually, I just remembered. I also have an exclusive with Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. When we talked to her in July or whatever, she told us that she had been briefed by the Alaska Air National Guard or whatever, and the Pentagon folks up there after that fourth object was shot down there that wasn't retrieved, according to what we've been told. And Murkowski then told us that nope, she did not see any video or pictures of what was shot down. When I just talked to her a week or two ago, because I'm circling back with some of the key lawmakers this time of year, when I circled back, she tells me now that she did see images, not video, but that the Pentagon has since allowed her to see images of what was shot down. And she said it looked like that first object shot down, the one actual balloon shot down off of South Carolina. I'm intrigued on that. And I'm curious. I hope some of your sources are listening and can look into that. Because for one, we'd all love to see those pictures. For two, I wonder what pictures she was shown, like, and why there was no video. I mean, we're giving the Pentagon these billion-dollar toys. Let's at least get some fucking video out of it.
So there's, I'm going to give you another lead here. There's a sensor fusion system called Talon Thresher, THRESHR. Think of it as Flight Radar 24 on steroids. But that is a sensor fusion platform from what we understand that UAP activity can be viewed on. And this particular platform has certain levels of access, so you have to have the right ticket. But my suggestion to her would be to ask the United States Air Force to allow her to view the historical data on Talon Thresher, and she's probably going to see some stuff. So, and I would say that anybody that has the ability to view the intelligence product off of this, you can dig back a long ways and find other anomalous things that have been doing anomalous things in our skies. And I virtually guarantee you the Office of Global Access, or actually probably is all under JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, along with Air Force Special Operations Command, went and conducted that recovery operation. Because also part of what they do recover, let's say, crashed satellites. And that's why there's a Department of Energy component that is trained in recovering loose nuclear weapons or any sort of radiological material. They are, I'm trying to think of the right word, but they're part of that team, because you can't send somebody in to recover a UAP or a satellite or anything that is going to be radioactive unless you have a team that understands how to handle those products or those things without without harming themselves or others. But ask her about that, or make the suggestion that she should ask about JSOC, what they were doing in Alaska.
Well, and here's my thing. My big broad takeaway from the 118th Congress, at least this first half of it in 2023, is these lawmakers have kind of lost their curiosity. You still have that curiosity in the House with these members, demanding to Seagrush's IG report in the skiff, and so they've actually bent the will of the intelligence community. And that's where I don't think we currently have enough lawmakers, especially the powerful ones, curious and asking the questions and, exploring stuff like that. We'll see. Hopefully in 2024, Congress gets its curiosity back.
I hope so. At the end of the day, we elect these people to make the correct decisions on behalf of the United States to ensure our national security as best they can. And when you've got the CIA Office of Global Access and a rogue element of JSOC doing stuff and hiding things from lawmakers and even not completely reading in presidents, it's like, how can the president conduct foreign policy if he doesn't know about the existence of Russia? It'd be like hiding Russia. So it just tells you how screwed up this whole thing is. And people in Congress, they've got to hold hearings and put people under oath. You just can't let them get up there and talk. It has to be under oath because there's a lot that they're going to find out. I guarantee you. All right, so we've kept you here long enough, and
so these lawmakers. I thought Sikorsky elected these lawmakers.
Well, yeah, we certainly know who Lockheed put in as the Hipsy chair. That's for sure. So okay, so
all lawmakers were like NASCARs and just had all their donors just on their suits. I mean, hell, it's so easy.
Yeah, well,
like,
hey, Mike Turner has Mike Turner has F-22 tears down tattooed on the side of his face. I got just one question for you here. Firstly, Audrey, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Huskers asks, preach, Matt Laslo. The fact that lawmakers are spending 75% of their time fundraising is completely what is wrong with politics. F that, we deserve change. I think we're all on the same page.
Amen. And that's just let your voices be heard.
Yeah.
And especially if you tune into a hearing or something and you see your lawmakers, just dunking, like shooting YouTube videos instead of asking serious questions, let them know. I mean, because one thing about the UAP UFO community is y'all read a lot, you are intelligent. And so don't dump a truckload of your intelligence on lawmakers or their staffs, but let them know that they can't blow smoke up your ass, because a lot of them feel like this is a non-issue that isn't serious, that they can keep sweeping under the rug. Keep telling them, nope.
Exactly. And it's if I were a lawmaker and I realized that the Pentagon and the intelligence community were lying to my face and then turning around and laughing about it as they walk away from talking to you because they got away with it, man, I would be so pissed off. Last question here, Jay.
If I knew they didn't want me to sniff around on something and I were a lawmaker on the intelligence community, I would bring a tent to that base that they told me I can't get into. Like, fuck you.
Yeah,
like, these are the 535 people that the Constitution empowers more than the White House. Like the executive branch is secondary in our system to Congress. Someone should tell Congress that. Yeah, because they're asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, the Pentagon and the CIA work for us. It's not the other way around. And we're not paying for 50-ish people to be conducting criminal activity. That's not what the Constitution, what our founding fathers meant. Okay, anyway, enough of my rant. Last thing here, Jay Burkhart, what do you know about Rick Doty and his possibly coming forward? I have no idea. Do you know? Yeah, all right. I don't either. Okay, so how can you are doing?
Last night.
Yeah, I don't know. So you are doing amazing work, and all of us, all Americans, whether you're tracking the UAP topic or not, should be grateful that journalists like yourself are out there confronting these lawmakers, bringing things to their attention that may not be on their radar. How can people support your work? And how can we find you?
Askapol.com. Please subscribe. There's free subscriptions, so you get alerts every time we drop our exclusives. We're at I think last night was our 98th exclusive that we dropped this year, even though it's well over 100. That's 98 podcasts. And so we'll hit the 100th here in a couple of days. And then through the new year, we have a bunch of different exclusive interviews with lawmakers, kind of looking ahead to what they're hoping to get out of the new year, and also those juicy, newsy tidbits that Matt just reminded me of. So you can subscribe for free, or please support our work. I get paid $2 a word by Playboy and other magazines to write features for them. I get pennies for the UAP stuff, but love the support from the community, and thanks for letting me be the congressional correspondent for this stuff, and keep sending me your questions. At Ask a Poll, we want to be your conduit to Congress, and literally you're our brain trust. As you all send me information and tell me who to track down, boom, then I do it when I can find them. So appreciate y'all. Happy holidays, happy new year, and give Ask a Poll a little love if you got some extra love in your wallet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and because you hear a lot of people, the debunkers are like, "Oh, you're bilking" and all this kind of stuff. Doing this work, making this content costs time and money. People have to make a living, and I think sometimes people think journalists make tons of money, or I'm making tons of money at this or whatever. We have to make a living. We got to pay for what we're doing, and it's through that financial support that happens. And also too, if you're not financially,
when I came to Washington, I wanted to be a correspondent on CNN. Work your way up. Once I was here for just months, I was like, fuck that. I want to leave this town with my soul. And they are so they are corrupting our politics. So yeah, those folks make millions. The rest of us who actually do good work and do good journalism, no, we get pennies. The lying assholes, they get all the money.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't fucking trade it. No, I'm leaving this goddamn town with my soul. I don't care if I leave as a fucking
God bless you. And and folks, thanks. We had a couple super chats here. We really appreciate it. And again, give Matt Laslo a follow, and retweet his stuff. He just does really great work. And of course, we always appreciate the amplification on our stuff as well.
And keep keeping me honest, guys. I make mistakes. Let me know.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. Ask your senators and congressmen about Office of Global Access and what they've been doing. Tell them to start sniffing around. They're going to be surprised at what they dig up on these clowns.
Love it. Love
cool.
it. Keep sending me homework like that.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks for joining us, and have a happy holidays. Cheers. And folks, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate your support, and we have the greatest fans in the world. We really appreciate it. And coming up this, this Sunday, we're playing part 2 of a recording an interview that I recorded with UFO researcher Robert Hastings. I conducted this interview over the phone about, like I said, around 2 years ago, and we played the first half of it, and we decided to bring back for commentary. I was trying to think who is the best person to add some commentary and some perspective about the great work that Robert Hastings has done. Robert, of course, wrote the book UFOs and Nukes, Extraordinary Tales or something like that of UFO encounters at our nuclear sites. Anyway, Bob Jacobs, who was an Air Force officer who was on a photographic squadron that would film nuclear missile launches, he had an instance where he saw there was shown a film of a UAP knocking one of our nuclear dummy warheads out during a test. Anyway, he'll be joining us. This guy is he speaks his mind. I think he's at the age that he just doesn't give an F anymore. He's going to tell people what he thinks. And we all know what he said about Sean Kirkpatrick and his opinion on him. Anyway, I think that's about it. Sorry for the technical glitches. I've been out of town for a while, and It's always a little rough around the edges on this show. But anyway, we'll see you guys Sunday, 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Pacific. I can't talk. Didn't get much sleep. 1 p.m. Pacific this Sunday. Part 2 of our recorded interview with Robert Hastings with commentary by the great Bob Jacobs. We'll see you guys then.